My film starts with a voiceover. The voiceover is from my protagonist, who signals him to start running when the guards change stations. You can see this here.
Oi, Cade, get over here now! They're changing stations! 10, 9, Cade, run! 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
This was inspired by the Children of Men opening sequence. Children of Men was directed by Alfonso Cuarón in 2006. It starts with a muffled phone call over the opening titles, which you can see here.
And security bill is ratified. After 8 years, British borders will remain closed.
This technique gives a deliberately ambiguous element to the film, which then makes the audience want to watch and find out what is happening. Both my film and Children of Men are both in the action thriller genre. This is due to them both having the same bleak tone and both of them starting by leaving the audience with questions. Another convention of a real media product that I use is colour grading. Colour grading can correct your footage if it doesn't look aesthetically pleasing to the audience. However, it can be used when setting the tone for a film. An example of this would be in horror films, maybe Women in Black, where they make the colours very saturated and become more unsaturated and become more grey. An example for my genre, however, would be Shawshank Redemption. In this, they use very subtle plain colour when showing shots of the prisoners. This makes them put all the prisoners the same and makes no one stand above others. You can see this done in my film here, where I use plain colours to make the grey prison outfit bland and make sure it doesn't stand out, to make sure he's not above the others because he's meant to be decriminalised. Colour grading can also foreshadow the mood of the film for the audience, as having a colour graded opening sequence can possibly foreshadow what the rest of the film will be about. However, although I do use conventions of media products, I also challenge them and sometimes subvert them. This is seen through my plot. My protagonist is the prisoner, Cade. He has not actually been put in prison for something he has done. He's been wrongly put into prison, and someone has framed him due to his background, which made it easier to frame him. Although he was brought up by a drug addict mother with little money and a council estate, my character has not conformed to this stereotype and wants to make a better life for himself, which is why he's escaping to set himself free and to live a fulfilled life. As you can see here, this is me challenging the stereotype of someone from a working class who may not have the best start in life, but still wants to try and make a better life for themselves. My film also uses the convention of a chase in the opening sequence. This can be seen in Alfred Hitchcock's film Vertigo. In Vertigo, the opening sequence is a rooftop chase scene from a criminal, we assume, being chased by a policeman. Like mine, the chase scene starts with the main character running from the policeman and the camera staying in the same shot to then show the policeman trying to run after that character. My film is also very similar to Vertigo, as both the citizens being chased manage to evade the police officers. This scene really attracts the audience, as not only makes them want to know why they are running away, but also makes them know what happens next in the film. Finally, an important developing part of an action thriller drama is the use of integrated titles. I use these as they add to the fluidity of the opening sequence. They are also a key convention of an opening sequence, which is why I use them. If they're done correctly, they can be very pleasing. The advance of technology means more films are using integrated titles, such as Panic Room. However, certain films do not conform to this convention, such as most of Quentin Tarantino's films. He prefers a more old school style of opening titles on his opening sequence, but having them laid over the footage. This can be seen in Pulp Fiction. So the soundtrack in my film starts with eerie music. This is so the audience kind of are asked questions, and they start asking questions right from the beginning of the film, right from the get-go. Just like Raging Bull, my soundtrack then changes to a more fast-paced, intense music. This is to suit the action. This builds a lot of tension and adds to the dramatic effect of the film. This is often used in films as it gets the audience's heart rate going. It also builds their excitement for what's going to happen next, and as they want to know more and want to be more intrigued into the film. An example of this being used can be clearly seen in the Point Break chase scene. Point Break is in the thriller/sport genre. It was directed by Catherine Bigelow and was released in 1991. camera movements in my film are very stable and fluid. This is due to me being able to use a very good piece of equipment called the DJI Osmo. It has an X and Y and a Z axis gimbal to make it completely steady. Fluid shots are often used in the industry as they help keep the reality for the audience. I really needed to do this as I was creating action drama genre opening sequence, which is key to keeping the audience's focus and make sure they don't realise, or make sure they don't see it as breaking the reality, so these fluid shots really help me keep that. Birdman was a 2014 film in the genre of romance. It was directed by Alejandro González Iñárritu, and it had a fluid feel to it. There was no cuts. Even though there was, I think, 38 cuts or something, it was very fluid, and the way they created the film made it seem like there was no cuts, which is kind of a new, really innovative way of filmmaking. And the cinematographer who did this was Emanuel Lubezki. The editing in my film is very simple. It's a lot of simple cuts from one shot to another. However, the pace of these simple cuts does change. As you can see at the beginning, it's very long shots with 1 or 2 cuts, but the shots are about 10 or 20 seconds each. This is to set the scene and not completely tell the audience what the film is about straight away, and kind of lead them to questions, maybe to see if they can figure out for themselves. However, about a minute in, when the chase scene happens, the pace completely changed. We get a lot of quick, sudden cuts while action's happening and while he's escaping the police officer. This is often used in the industry as it creates tension and shows actions happening. This can be seen in Indiana Jones' Raiders of the Lost Ark. This was directed by Steven Spielberg and released in 1981. My characters are all very stereotypical, apart from the main character Cade. Cade goes against everything that is expected of him. He was brought up by a drug-addicted mother who had also a very abusive boyfriend. He's brought up in not the best environment, and he's framed for something he didn't do, simply because they can frame him easily from his upbringing. However, Cade has gone against this. He's not conforming to this stereotype as he's trying to escape. He wants to make a better life for himself and wants to live a fulfilled life. This is seen from the film Kingsman, when the main character Eggsy is played by Taron Egerton, where it is brought up in a council estate with a single mother with no money and an abusive boyfriend, but becomes a Kingsman agent. Kingsman was directed by Matthew Vaughn and is an English crime film that was released in 2014. The rest of my characters, such as Hayley, is a normal girl who was brought up on a council estate who now works in retail, and she can't get a better job because she hasn't had any further education, or she doesn't have the qualifications to kind of push on. However, Hayley, she doesn't want this. She's happy with where she is. She enjoys her life, even if she isn't possibly, someone saying, fulfilling it to the most. She really likes working in retail, and that's fine. However, Cade doesn't want this, and Cade wants to be, best of the best and push forward.